So good morning, brothers and sisters. So nice to see you. So nice to be with you again. And today we're going to talk about the red and white cross. Let me share the screen. Okay. And here we go. Okay. So this inspiration I got because of my interest in prophecies. You who know me know that I am very interested in spirit world and also in prophecies, and I made many slides over the years, and I share with you. So this is something that came up in my mind because many prophecies mention the white cross of the second coming of Christ. I will come to that later. So today is we have the year of the rabbit, and let's see, next slide. There we are. Yeah. So red cross and white cross in the Providence. And I think this is not something that has been talked so much about in the unification movement. So it's a sort of interesting concept, and I hope something new for you. And the red cross is like my thoughts on the whole thing, and the white cross comes from these prophecies about the second coming. So first of all, a little bit background. I'm sure you know all some of this. That the cross has been a symbol, important symbol during 2,000 years. The Crusaders, and also it has become a symbol in some of the flags, like Switzerland, Malta, Georgia, and it's in Georgia. It's like Saint Georg, so it's like a holy concept there. And my thinking then, I connect why I call it Red Cross is because of the suffering in Christianity. In early Christianity, there was really a lot of suffering. We know that Jesus died on the cross. The early disciples, and actually all the disciples except one, St. John, died being crucified. So it was quite a bad, difficult time. And all this was, of course, a foundation for Christianity to expand and spread. And here we see a painting Hunjanim made, resurrection, and it's quite impressive. See the crosses there, you see the Spirit descending. So a little bit more background. In Christianity, we have not only had the cross as a symbol, but actually in the early times, it was fish, and also you can see the dove, and we have the Holy Communion and the churches. So there are many symbols for Christianity, but I think the major one that has lasted is this cross that all the ministers have, and the churches have also. And we know from the divine principle that actual crucifixion of Jesus was not something to celebrate. Christianity, they talk a lot about the cross, the saving of the cross, and Jesus' blood saves, and like this way. But it's interesting that the divine principle has this different concept, that his original mission was to survive, not to die. So it turns, it's like 2,000 years of Christianity sort of turned upside down. And I think that's why many Christians found it difficult to accept their father's teaching in the beginning. And I can see this still here, like in Kirkonomi. I have some Christian friends, and they always, all the time, they emphasize this saving. The blood saves. Yeah. And of course, in our movement, we also have symbols. We have the unification symbol you see in the to the right, and this is a very interesting symbol. It has all these lines going out. 12 is a very important number. We know the 12 gates, 12 pearly gates, the 12 characters of humans, and there are many other references to 12. And then we have the spirit world and the physical world in these arrows interacting with each other. This is also important for our movement. Okay, I'll go on here. So here we have the change of Jesus' mission when he really had to go this way of the cross was when, at the Mount of Transfiguration, when he met Moses and Elijah, and they were talking to him. And here you can draw some parallels also to the true Father. He was supported from spirit world from the very beginning. Jesus came to him 1935, and also there are testimonies about how the spirit world is inspiring him and helping him in many ways. If you read this missionary's testimony to Eastern Europe, you will see many miracles happen, how they were protected, during communist time. The guards were checking always for Bibles and spiritual literature, and they were told, Mission Butterfly, this book, you can read how they were told how to avoid being caught by the guards. Many amazing stories. So there are parallels here. The spirit world works always with the Messiah. The Messiah's mission on earth is so crucial. He needs all the support he can get. Yeah. Here's the first Christian martyr, Stephanus, and this is some, you could say like it's a bad event, and it's interesting also that one man, his name was Saul, later became Saint Paul. He was there, and he was watching and guarding their clothes, if I remember the Bible correctly. Here we see the parallels of history. I'm sure you've seen this many times, and I marked the red time there. So the first 400 years, circa 400 years, there was martyrs and bloodshed among Christians. So it spread really based on the suffering of the followers of Jesus. And here we have some good news, you could say, because true Father, of course, he's in spiritual now, but he he died a natural death, so we don't have to be crucified in the unification moment, even though we have some martyrs in the history. Normally you survive. You become blessed, you have a family, you have children and grandchildren, and a happy life. So here, we know from the one principle that First World War and Second World War, they were very important in the Providence. First World War for the Messiah to be born, 1920, and Second World War, that the foundation was laid for him to start his mission. But then, unfortunately, he was not accepted in Korea, history tells us, so he had to pay more indemnity, he had to go to Hungnam prison, severely tortured and as close to death as you can come. But he survived with the power of God and his determination, and he could be released 1950. And then, unfortunately, still more indemnity had to be paid. We had the Korean War, 1950, 1953. It was a very, very bloody war, if you read about it. And again, suffering and blood shed. So that was indemnity and foundation for 1954, our church founding in Korea. And of course, all this is a base then for 1960. It's the victorious year when true parents could give the blessing, could be blessed themselves, and could give the blessing to followers. Interesting here is something I mentioned before, that 1944, true father had his first marriage, and then that was without any followers at that time. So like the original providence and planning was that true parents should have been blessed before, and then true father should start his mission based on that family foundation. But since there was this detour, you could say, like he took the wrong turn, so he he had to find followers first and build up a foundation so that he could be protected in 1960 and fulfill this Bible prophecy. Yeah. And here at the bottom I wrote 2014, 2022, Ukraine ? So this is a little bit sensitive. I will not go too deeply into it, but if you who were at the Giuseppe Calli's workshop, you remember he talked about this political, spiritual, religious principle explanation. So it's multifold reasons for that conflict. And I find it interesting, well, yeah, sad and interesting that it might be indemnity for the unification of Korea. Of course, I don't know. I don't know anything more than anyone else, but this is my thoughts of getting some meaning to a sort of meaningless bloodshed ongoing now. Very sad. Okay, so I read here, quote from True Father: hardship itself isn't a bad thing. The cross you carry isn't bad. The true path of the cross will lead you to the true path of love. Parents walk willingly the path of the cross for they love their children. Isn't this right? So the true path of the cross will lead you to the true path of love. It is absolutely wrong for Unification Church members to think that we have nothing to do with Christianity. Why is that so? The Old Testament, New Testament age existed in order to restore true parents. The completed Testament age also exists for the restoration of true parents. The content of those three ages is the same for restoration of true parents. So that is really like a red line from the very beginning, from the first Adam and Eve. Before they fell, they were going on the path to become true parents of all mankind. But then we know they failed. So the whole restoration has this goal and purpose to make a new mankind through a new Adam and a new Eve. It's so logical when you think about it. It's so logical, and it really explains that Jesus came to Mary. It's the most natural thing. Adam and Eve fell, so Jesus and his bride should restore that. And True Father came, and of course True Father has to find True Mother, and together they fulfill the mission of true parents. The Messiah is in fact true parents. Therefore, the content and the purpose of Judaism, Christianity, and Unification Church are the same. Then what is different? Judaism wanted to receive the Messiah on a national level and then to expand into the whole world. Christianity was formed after Jesus' death in order to receive the Messiah on the worldwide foundation. So really, without Jesus, True Father wouldn't have a platform to fulfill this. Therefore, we are very grateful to Jesus. We are very grateful to the foundation that all Christians have laid for 2,000 years. And I believe we should not be too harsh when Christians oppose us. You know, it's sort of understandable from their concepts of the Bible. Yeah. So here's three of my thoughts. The Messiah, with an S, plural, the Messiahs, true parents, is God's gift to mankind. So only God can purify this lineage, like he purified Jesus' lineage. That's clear in the Bible. And their suffering is a gift to God and mankind. And there we come to this white cross that is the topic. So now we're coming into that. So their suffering and their foundation is the white cross symbol. The symbol for that is the white cross. And then what do mankind give as a gift to God? Well, it's the acceptance. So we can see in the pictures here, there's like in Korea and Japan, the first, and the middle one, I think also the Oriental. So I can see in the faces they're Oriental. But anyway, there was also, in the West, there was acceptance 1970, in the 70s in USA, Madison Square Garden, and the Yankee Stadium and Washington Monument was a success. And that's where we are today. So we have acceptance, and we have many participants in this upcoming blessing 1 week from now. So it's a great time for us. Red Cross, of course, this is a symbol for international help, and also the ambulances have this sign. That's another reference. And here's Dr. Wilson's remarks on Christianity. By dying on the cross, Jesus defeated Satan, yet Satan has hastened it. If so, Satan defeated himself. Paul, the foolishness of the cross. None of the rulers of the age understood it, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. By this reckoning, Judas Iscariot did God's will. In fact, Satan killed Jesus to preserve his base, original sin. So this is so clear that something remained even after Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. And that is the original sin that the one principle so clearly talks about. That is the remaining for the Messiah's true parents, to remove for all mankind, all mankind. So Satan killed Jesus to preserve his past and future base, the original sin. And as we can see today, 2023 plus some years for the miscounting, we still have such a suffering, especially now, so much suffering in the world. Latest Sudan, terrible war in Sudan. And all this is from the original sin that people have. They cannot find peace and love yet. Okay, so the white cross is the cross of the heart. Suffering persecution without dying. This is the importance. Second coming in true time. And here's some thoughts on the last 20, 30 years. We have terrorism, 9/11, COVID-19 was also suffering on a global scale. Ukraine war also include here. Yeah? We have energy crisis, and we have many things to solve. We have the climate change also. That's also part of you could say the fall that we should have understood to take better care of creation, and then we wouldn't have this climate crisis that we do have. And here's some hopeful. Since I mentioned so much about war and suffering, I wanted something hopeful also connected to true parents. Yeah. So Doris Walder, she was an early member, joined in California. She was in Rome. She was very spiritual. And when I joined 79, there were many testimonies from her, from Spirit World, of course, focusing on True Father's mission at that time. It was True Father, and True Mother was more in the background. And here is an interesting episode in the center in San Francisco. So one evening, a little old lady called Lovey Murray came to our door. She said, God told me in a dream to come to this address and I would find his son. The lady was about 80 years old. Miss Kim was teaching the one principle to several members, and afterwards we all went into the kitchen where she continued to speak about Heavenly Father. All of a sudden, this old woman went into trance, and she started shouting in a masculine voice, very powerfully, saying, I see a man in Korea. He has a white cross in one hand and a white flag in the other, and he's marching into North Korea, Red China, Japan, and into Russia, and all over the world. Nothing will stop this man from bringing the entire world to God. Nothing will stop this man, absolutely nothing. After this, she fainted, and we had to take her home in a taxi. Quite dramatic, I would say. I haven't experienced anything like this in the movement. I think that might be good. But it seems like it was very powerful spirit at that time, in the early times. The first missionary, Young Won Kim, she came in 1959 to San Francisco, the USA. So this was in the very early days. And I know they visited many spiritual churches at that time, because spiritual was extremely active. Yeah, like we could see here. It's a good testimony to our movement. And I think this is part of our legacy, part of our history. So we should keep this, we should keep this in our reading and sharing. And it's a lot of hopeful for our times now that we live in 2023. True Father's foundation is there, and he is successful. He said before dying, all is fulfilled, all is finished. During 1965 hologram creation, someone asked Sun Moon, aren't you tired? Because he was going around the USA making holograms. I think the whole world he went around, yeah. So he answered, I was born to be tired. Interesting answer, yeah. So it's a tough mission to the Messiah. And this is interesting picture, True Mother with Hunginim and Eugenim. And I call this martyrs in the Moon family, because Hunginim, to the left, he died in this car accident in 1984, and that actually protected True Father from being killed by communists in Korea. he was going around in a mission at that time, talking in public places on VOC, Victory of Communism. And then Ho Chi Minh, as you know, he had a very, very tough life, a very suffering life, I would say. And being the eldest son of the Messiah, that is the greatest challenge you can have. Everyone will expect something from him. And, yeah, so it's sort of suffering. And in December 1998, I proposed, this is true, Father, a founding of an international peace fund in an address I gave to religious leaders, gathered for an international conference that it had as its theme, realizing the interfaith ideal, beyond dialogue into practice. All the leaders who participated in that conference resolved to initiate a movement in which the world's religious people would lead the way in making donations for world peace. We proposed that donations be given in amounts related to the number 7. I believe that if all religious people on earth become one in heart, they will actively participate in this funding efforts. The fund thus created would be used to establish peace zones, to teach the ideas of peace and the message to achieve it. In addition to religious people, the United Nations too could encourage all nations and their peoples to make annual contributions to this fund. These funds might be donated under the name of White Cross Fund. This is interesting. This is true, Father talk about the White Cross. And now we're coming to the end of this today's sermon and sharing. So I focused on the prophecies here in the booklet. Also very important booklet for our movement in the legacy. The Korean books of prophecy, plural. So this was written by a journalist who is not a member, as far as I know. And True Father commented on this book also at the Honolulu in the USA. And let's see what I have here. Yeah. So he commented like this way. This book came out 3 months ago. So this was 1998, he commented. And has already sold 7,000 copies. Excuse me. Someone should translate this book into English. It will be very difficult to translate to English because of the Oriental philosophical concept involved, but someone should do it. And we know we have it now in English. And this is from the book then in English. He seeks to extend the ideal principle of true love and true family. And as the King of all kings, he will build ideal nations and world peace, step by step. He is managing everything spiritually as the King of all kings. And this is interesting. If true fathers and spiritual, it means that he's also controlling and managing things from that side. A white cross, here comes the white cross again, a great heavenly way that unifies Confucianism, Buddhism, Christianity, and all other religions into one. And there is a prophecy here. He will come April 2021, 2024, 2025, moon calendar. Believe in God, this is the teaching of the holy man who came from heaven. And here is from True Father again. Now the age of the completed testament is the age of sacrifice for the sake of attending God, for the sake of God's liberation, center on true paths. Therefore, the Unification Church shows today a white cross. Again, you mentioned. True paths are shouldering the cross. So this is like suffering, connected to this. It's not crucified to die, but paying indemnity and suffering for the foundation to expand. Yeah. The Way of Young People, 1985. So now we come to the very end. Yeah. So summary, white cross is a great heavenly way and indemnity that unifies the world. Here's from Peace Messages. With God and the King of Peace as a central axis, I shall lead the anointed representatives sent throughout the world and so create the original ideal kingdom of everlasting peace. And we know now that Abel Yuan, he talks a lot about Abel Yuan and Peace Yuan, and that is UPF, the Universal Peace Federation. So it is being fulfilled. No time. This is a painting from Unjin Moon. She's doing very nice art. And we're coming to the end slide. We are in a golden age, the great future for mankind, for parents of heaven, earth, and humankind. Please, all, share the gospel of gospels. Christ, true parents, have returned. A new bright future for sinless mankind. Last slide. Remember the beauty in God's nature is there to inspire us. Thank you, three birds. You made a nice ending of my story. Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Parent, we have shared now some of your providence, and we can truly see that so many preparations were made for True Father to fulfill and True Mother to fulfill this mission of true parents, and still they have been so much rejected and persecuted. Also, members have been persecuted over the years, and this is so sad because you wanted to give the highest gift possible to mankind, opening the door to a sinless life and establishing holy families on earth and in spirit world. So we want to really expand and be a firm, established foundation here in Finland for you and your Providence. And we take all this inspiration today now with us in the coming week, and please be with us, guide us, bless us, and let's take every opportunity to share the good news of the coming of peace on earth and peace in families and peace within mind and body. The greatest possible peace. Thank you, Heavenly Parent. And I pray this now with brothers and sisters. Bless Central families. Adieu. Thank you.